Blossom chips.
Okay, welcome everybody to
Yeah.
episode 14
Whoa.
of Blossom Chips. I know, it's like if we were recording every day, this would be 2 weeks. But
Oh,
anyways.
that makes it seem less impressive.
Oh, it does. And we've got James and Erica back with us. And
Finally,
Cloud.
after a long
Yes.
departure.
After
Yeah, what was your names again?
Such a long thing. I'm Paul.
Oh, you're Paul. This whole time I've had you guys backwards.
Yeah, man, it's strange since we were roommates back in the
Yeah,
day.
you know. Missed the
That was
time
weird
and
when he
all
was
that.
calling you Bryce, and you didn't
Yeah.
know Bryce.
You a lot of time when you weren't paying attention.
I feel like you guys need some like crowd cheering kind of sound effect when you're first introducing
That is a
it.
great idea.
Oh, like what? Like what kind of thing?
I don't know. Sounds like a studio
No.
audience.
Oh, crowd cheering.
Yeah.
I thought you said
Yeah.
crowd. I thought you said crowd sharing.
Crowd
No,
cheering.
And I was like,
cheering.
I was like, yeah, crowd sharing is a good way to go.
I need to enunciate better. Yeah, applause. Audience is just going crazy for the start of the show, you know.
Yeah, no, that'd be awesome. I need to enunciate better too. The one time when I said that Japan has an aging problem, and no, they have an aging population.
Aging
Yeah.
population. Yeah.
Bryce kept thinking I said Asian. Of course, they have an Asian population.
You did
Be
sound
cool.
like you said Asian on the
I
recording
know.
as well.
I know. Well, I've been mumbling my whole life.
Why stop now?
Yeah, why stop now?
Thankfully,
my kindergarten-
technology can help remedy it, right? Because you can just dial up the gain and normalize
There we
it.
go.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't. I haven't actually tried to mess around with it, but
Well, you do implicitly, right, on this recording.
Wait. So what do you mean?
I mean,
Wait.
you're normalizing your individual track, so it makes up for any audible, shortcomings, any volume shortcomings.
Yeah, that's true. But what I'm talking about is like slurring my words, kind of.
Oh
thing.
yeah, that's true. They're mumbling
So,
kind of like
anyway,
that.
all you listeners out there probably thought you were tuning in for more Myers-Briggs, but actually we're talking about Paul's speech issues.
No, we're not. We're gonna get on track here. But I did just want to point out that when I was in kindergarten, my kindergarten teacher told my mom, Paul could be ventriloquist when he grows up because he doesn't move his lips when he talks. And I never outgrew it. And my younger brother Sam, he's the one right below me. He also slurs his words and mumbles really bad. And I'm afraid that's because he learned to talk from me.
Oh, it's your fault.
And his kids will slur their words.
I think
and
so.
their kids will slur their words.
No, nobody else in our family slurs their words and mumbles like that. It's just us two.
Is that an F trait? Thinking something is your fault?
Oh, maybe I am to blame. Woe is me.
Yeah.
And I write it about it in my journal. Like, I will forever lament that Sam mumbles because of me.
To my eternal shame.
Anyways, okay. So last episode, we were talking about thinking versus feeling, and today,
Which is about the cognitive function of making decisions.
Yeah, exactly. And this time we're talking about the last Myers-Briggs letter, judging versus perceiving.
Yeah.
Which is how would you describe this?
Well,
You
it has
describe
to,
it more.
it's our
accurately.
preference for which of the two cognitive functions we prefer. So S versus N, that was how we get information, how we get and process information. Thinking versus feeling is how we make decisions. So the last letter, judging or perceiving, has to do with which of those cognitive functions is dominant for us. Is it making decisions or is it processing information?
Okay. This is probably another way to word it, but like this material we grabbed from personality pages says that it refers to our attitude towards the external world and how we live our lives day to day. People with a judging preference want things to be neat, orderly, and established. I would say they want decisions to be made.
They want things decided.
Yeah, decided. The perceiving preference wants things to be flexible and spontaneous. Judgers want things settled. Perceivers want things open-ended. Yeah. So, and we got a list of examples here. We may as well just go ahead and go over this list just quickly.
Yeah.
We were using judging.
Do it.
We are using judging when we make a list of things to do. I actually don't ever make lists.
Me neither.
Wait,
Yeah.
I
Perceivers
remember a
all the
story.
way.
Yeah.
I remember a
Perceivers
story
will.
about you making a list with a girl.
Oh, wait. Was it? Was it? Oh, this is like
She
a pros
saw
and
the
cons
list, or it was a pros
That's
and
true.
cons list.
Okay, that's true. I was trying to make it. Okay, no, this is actually. Well, okay.
Actually, he played it off pretty good, I think.
I did. I feel like this relationship was on its way out the door, but I was trying to decide whether to keep dating this girl. I kind of felt like we were not well matched up, and I had written out this pros and cons list, and I was like pros, cons, but it was other than that, it was vague. And she was in my room one day on a date later, and she's just like, "Oh, what's that pros and cons list about?" And I was like, "Oh, just something."
Definitely not about you.
I was like totally caught off guard, and I feel like I don't know. She might have known it was about her.
Oh.
Yeah, that's true. I did make a list about that. Well,
Women are savvy like that.
Yeah, we recently found the pro-con list that I made when James and I started dating about whether I should stay and date him or move because I just finished my program.
Our story was pretty dramatic.
I remember
Erica
that.
had no job, and her savings were dwindling, and it was either stay and gamble everything on me or move. It could have been a romantic movie premise or something.
Yeah.
Right. And James said in his James voice, he's like, "Follow me into the sunset," something like that.
Yeah. No, I just want to throw out here that Paul, your list was about. It was kind of a P kind of list. You're weighing the information.
Well, I don't know.
It wasn't a to-do list. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, this goes a little bit back. I feel like to thinking versus feeling a little bit, right? Because I also think that like a thinker probably would be more likely to like. I don't know. Maybe not. Like, I don't think like it comes naturally to me to sit down and write a list and try to make a decision that
that's
way.
More of a thinker.
I usually feel like, and a thinker might like maybe a list helps a thinker be like, okay, let me organize my thoughts. Okay, this one's more logical.
Yep.
I mean, maybe they tend to do that in their mind.
And I would say that I would interject that I think there's a difference between a list you make when you're trying to figure out how to solve a problem and the list that people make of the things that they need to do in a day or something.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. That's a good point. Well, I never make any of those.
Yeah.
Exactly. I don't either, but Erica
Erica,
does.
do you make to-do lists?
So many.
Huh.
How does it make you feel to make those lists?
Well, it feels pretty great. I sometimes put things on the list that are really easy just so I can get the satisfaction of crossing them off.
Do you ever put anything on the
all the
list?
way.
Do you ever put anything you've already done just so you can check it off?
Yes.
Wait, that is totally cheating. Well, yeah, I do use sticky notes sometimes, but for me, there's no satisfaction in crossing the thing off. And I usually just, when I'm done with it, I just take the sticky note and shred it, and I'm like, good, get that out of here. But I don't know. There's a cartoon down here that has a judge's to-do list and a perceiver's to-do list, and the judge's to-do list is like very neat, and it's written in cursive: buy groceries, balance checkbook, pick up kids, and some other stuff. And then the perceiver's to-do list is on like a torn corner of a piece of paper that's all crumpled up, and it says, "Wake up, see how I feel."
That sounds about right.
So that's the one thing.
And I think it's pretty evident, but yeah, if people don't know it from the last episode, Erica is a pretty decent J, and I'm a really strong P.
Yeah, I'm a strong P as well. In fact, P is the letter that I'm strongest on out of all the letters. And
same here.
It's also why.
Actually, that's not true. It's pretty strong for me.
Yeah,
But
it's
strong,
also why
okay.
when James and I lived in the same place, anything social thing we would go to, we would always be very late. Because that's a P quality as well that really annoys J's.
Yeah.
In fact,
Your roommate.
okay, yeah. Let me go over some of these other ones real quick too, just so we can give people some background. Where judges tend to schedule things in advance, form and express judgments. That's kind of a thing I think, like probably mentally in their mind, they want to like be able to put things in boxes in their mind.
Yeah, they want to have their opinions settled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas with P's, it's like the verdict is always out on a lot of
And
things.
that's why TPs really love the debate.
Yeah, that's right. They're in no hurry to come to any decision. They just want to. They just love the act of debating.
Yeah, like wait a minute, can we just talk about this more? Like, they should be senators or something. So judges like to bring closure to an issue so that they can move on. Okay, perceivers tend to postpone decisions to see what other options are available.
Yep.
They like to act spontaneously.
Yep.
They decide what they do as they do it rather than forming a plan ahead of time. We kind of talked a little bit about that when we were talking about the second letter. No, E versus I guess, where I do that when I'm talking too. I feel like I'm formulating things as I'm speaking, but that might be kind of similar. And also, perceivers tend to do things at the last minute.
Yeah.
So everybody uses both of these to some extent, but
apparently some people actually like think in their mind about what they're going to say before they call someone.
Yeah. Right. I don't know.
Erica, you're nodding.
Yeah. Why would you call them if you didn't know what you were going to say?
Well, you have a general idea of the purpose of the call.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Yeah. No, it's true. Like peas are probably more usually shooting from the hip kind of thing.
Yeah, off the cuff.
Fast. I can relate to a lot of these things as a pea.
Well, and I'm just gonna throw. It has a lot to do with the fact that like they didn't plan ahead of time, not necessarily that they're party animals necessarily. It's just true. That there was no plan ahead of time, so that's what makes it spontaneous.
Oh yeah, I've never been a party animal, but I'm good at not planning, and
exactly.
You get really good at recovering from the consequences of your not planning. The more you do it, you know.
They're right. When I remember like James and I would be in these conversations, and somebody would invite James to something. They'd be like, "Hey, you want to do this?" And James's response would always be like, "Yeah, that might be a good idea." And, it was a great way of putting it off. So we have
because we want to see what else is out there. We want the information.
Yeah,
we don't want to make the decision.
No, totally. We want to make. That's why peas. I know you. Do you do this, Bryce? I don't know. Like on Facebook, when people invite me to stuff, every single time my response is maybe. It's like maybe across the board.
You can't work with that.
And occasionally I get some flack from that. Like, there's a girl up here.
Some of that is just singles commitment aversion slash busy.
It's true.
Busy schedules, but yeah, a lot of
so there is some of that too because we're also trying to keep in mind like, okay, who's there that I might be interested in?
Yeah,
and you don't want to commit before anybody else does that you might. Yeah, exactly. That might impact your decision.
Yeah. Right. Somebody up here was giving me a hard time about that because she invited me to her birthday party and she's like, and I saw her in person somewhere. She's like, what's this maybe stuff? And I was like, I'm like pretty sure I can go. And then I did go, but I think I changed my Facebook thing to going, and even that was hard.
What about like,
go
ahead.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, way to stretch yourself, Paul.
Yeah, I'm growing.
What about like when Erica always tries to pin me down on what I want for dinner? Is this related?
Oh, interesting.
Probably.
How does this conversation go?
It goes, is there anything you'd like for dinner?
And I'm like, well, what are my options? You know, I don't even know what we have in stock. Then I start trying to suggest some things because I've learned that that's what she really wants is some suggestions. She's not really asking me what I want. She's like, what are some things we could have? And I don't know. It can go in circles.
You halfway.
Yeah, she is. No, it works out. We usually eat eventually.
That's awesome.
The thing is, she gets hungry.
80% of the time, we actually eat.
Well, the thing that drives it is she gets hungry sooner than I do. So yeah, I'm not in as much of a hurry. I'm like, I know that we'll get food eventually because she'll need it.
It's true.
Awesome. That's interesting. Yeah, man. Bryce and I have a roommate who's a J right now, and one of the things I've noticed is this whole kind of like scheduling things. Like it means a lot to him if he knows like this is what time we're leaving.
Yes.
And then he's always ready.
That's
right on time.
And he'll very nicely say, "So, when are we leaving?" And if we're like carpooling or something, right?
Yeah, he's better at getting places on time.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that reminds me a little bit of one of my brothers. It's kind of like that. That's also a J. Whereas me and Bryce were always like, if you were to ask us, and sometimes he'll do this, like, when you guys go into that thing, and sometimes our tendency will be like, I don't know.
I don't know.
7-ish. Check back in a half hour. You know?
I fear that poor Erica is put to great distress sometimes by this. And I'm brought to mind in particular of our vacation to Europe a couple years ago. because obviously she wants to like, okay, we're in freaking Prague. We're gonna get up at this time and go to this thing, and then that one, do the next thing. And the poor girl had to be with 3 Ps, me and my brother and my sister, and we were like, we're on vacation. We want to wake up when we wake up and see what we feel like doing then. And
fortunately, I'm independent, and I would just leave earlier than them, and they'd catch up with me a few hours later.
That worked out pretty well. But then when they'd gone to Europe another time, her family, apparently I guess her dad and brother must be Ps. In some ways, because they told me that they called it the Death March, what her and her mom had planned for them.
Oh, man. That's horrible.
No breaks.
I did go to Disneyland over there. I did go to Disneyland with the Strong J. I think she must have been. And anyways, it was kind of like that, too. We all had to wake up at a certain time. She woke us up. And then we had like a schedule that day, and it was like she knew exactly which ride we were going to, in which order, stuff like that. I mean, some of that was just to maximize our ride time, which was cool.
So I just want to throw this out. If my memory is coming back to me about going back to the gender breakdown, I believe, and I'll have to verify this another time, but I think that J and P is another one where there is a slight gender difference, where it's like women are like
more J's?
55% J, yeah.
Oh, okay.
That makes sense to me. That's hence the saying, all girls are a little bit crazy and all guys are a little bit lazy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, and it's true. I mean, I think, one of the potential downsides of a J is
it's pretty controversial. You can remove it from the record if you need to. Go on.
I'm trying to turn that into something constructive rather than inflammatory.
Sure.
But like, I think J's can because they're so systematic, so planful, so methodical, that they can be a bit rigid.
Yeah. Sure.
And that rigidity can be it can lead to some neuroticism. In the extreme, like a perceiver can like float through life and never like make any big difficult decisions either, right?
It's true. Postponing a decision until it's too late.
Right.
Which is the value for me of being married to a more J person. She helps me get things done.
Right.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I was going to point out too, is that I'm a pretty strong P, and on all the websites that talk about romantic matching up, they'll always say like it's probably better for me to be with a J. Yeah. And if you can find the right balance between, hey man, some planning ahead is useful, and some ability to be able to go with the flow when things don't go according to plan and you need to be spontaneous is useful as well. Yeah. So.
And I think Erica, out of consideration, tries to build in some opportunities for flexibility just for me. So I appreciate that.
We balance out in that if we're going to something, I think we're unconscionably late. And James thinks we're going painfully early.
And I think, why are we leaving already? No one else is going to be there.
But then we get there on time, like about the time people would expect people to come to things. So it works out.
We hit the optimal timing window.
Yeah.
You guys are a good team.
Yeah, that's useful. Yeah, I feel kind of like that with like strong J's. I kind of feel like, okay, I'm not allowed to leave more than half an hour after it starts. And then you get there about 45 minutes to an hour after it starts. That's socially acceptable.
Yeah, fashionably late, right?
Yeah, totally.
Wait, so how do you reconcile this gender correlation, alleged gender correlation, with the fact that the traditionally, the cliche at least, is that women are always wanting their guys to be spontaneous for them, like do something spontaneous.
How do I reconcile that?
Well, yeah. I'm just curious.
I don't know. Culture. I don't know. It's a good question. That is a good question.
It's an American thing.
I'm not projecting here. I mean, Erica doesn't always demand this. I just know that it's.
And I mean, I'm not even sure I accept the premise that women, want their men to be spontaneous. I don't know.
I think it's
what do you think, Erica? You're a woman.
I think it's a mislabeling. I don't think people. Gosh, yeah. Here I go. I speak for all women.
All right. Well, you better get it right.
Yeah. No, some people love spontaneity, but I think often it's code for I want you to have done something that shows that you thought about me.
Correct.
That actually,
that was
that's
my
true
thought as well.
That is the ring of truth.
Yeah.
Though I have thought about writing an app that it's just called like Spontaneous Husband or whatever, where you say, and it just like randomly tells you, give your wife flowers today, and you put in like the intervals or.
That thing is gold.
That's awesome.
That
Spontaneous Husband.
Like, I was just thinking of you today, so I got these flowers, and you're like, wink, wink. Thanks, Spontaneous Husband.
That's awesome. Wait, I think James, you were the one that told me one time about this a couple that had gone to counseling, and he was like working all day and never like said anything to her. He like never communicated while he was at work, and that was hard on their marriage. And so they reached some middle ground where he was like, okay, how about if I have like 5 canned messages, and when I'm thinking about you, I send one of them. I'm sincere about it, but it's just a canned message. And she's like, yeah, that's okay. So he would send a canned message, every day or so. He'd be like, just thinking about you, but it was a canned thing. But it still meant a lot to her that, well, he was thinking about her and he was sincere about it.
So what if he'd started automating that and didn't actually be the one that hit send? It just sort of got sent by itself.
Probably have to like not tell her that.
As long as she didn't catch on, I think this could win for both of them.
That's awesome. Automation, man.
Dude, you love that stuff.
No, I told you. I love automation. When James and I were messing around with like music back in the days, and we were coming up with, I think it was either a band name or a song name that was called Automate Everything. Anyways. Yeah, so, okay. Go ahead. That's a good thing. Bryce wanted to talk about.
And by the way, listeners, you may recall I alluded to this more advanced version of the Myers-Briggs type indicator that I took when I was doing some coach training. It's called the Myers-Briggs type indicator Step 2.
Damn. Y'all ain't even ready for this.
Yeah.
No, we're not.
Brace yourselves for the synergy.
Yeah,
hold on, dear seats.
Brace yourself for the synergy.
Yeah, exactly. Synergy is going to be amazing.
We should add that tagline to everything.
Bryce, why don't you unpack this for us?
Okay, well, it's going to be pretty impactful.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, this actually kind of helped me resolve, because it's a more in-depth version. It helped resolve some of my own, like, I'd call it a non-distressing identity crisis I had for a long time, which is that I thought I was actually an introvert, but I'd always score on the extroverted side. And this one breaks each letter down into some subscales. And I found that on one of the subscales for introversion and extroversion, I was actually strongly introverted. But the others, I was more middling on the extroverted side. Did I say that right? Yeah. Anyway, so which led to a consistent extrovert score, even though on one of them I'm much more of an introvert.
Okay.
Which by the way was, what is it? It's like intimacy or something. Anyway,
don't reveal that to girls might be listening.
I'm not sure we're ready for that.
Hey, I want to be intimate.
Okay, you're just talking about emotional intimacy.
Yes, we're talking.
Okay.
Exactly, but women crave emotional intimacy.
Exactly.
That's true.
So I do want them to know that.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying you were not. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm strongly on that one.
Okay.
Which, I don't know. I should probably take this one again, because that subscale is gregarious on the extroversion side versus intimate on the introversion side. But I actually am pretty gregarious.
Gregarious.
So I guess I'm just...
I'm gregarious as well.
Yeah, and you're not even named
magic.
Greg.
I mean, it's all self-report.
Some guy named Greg who initially was the gregarious guy, or
one wonders.
Where did that word come from? Was it like some guy was like, "You're like Greg,
yes.
you're
King Gregory IV." You didn't know the story?
Is that real?
No, I just made that up.
Okay.
But it's good. King Gregory.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. So I thought one of the interesting things on the subscales for judging versus perceiving, one of the subscales is early starting on the judging side versus pressure prompted on the perceiving side.
Oh gosh, I'm so
and usually, especially in a work setting, we think that like if you start projects early, you are a good person and a good employee and more productive, right? And if you're a procrastinator, you're a bad person or a bad student, let's say. But they've found in the research that actually
that's
that it is true that judgers, tend to be motivated by self-discipline and steady progress, and they find late starts to be stressful.
Oh, man, this is sounding kind of boring. Anyways, go ahead.
Sounding boring. Whereas for perceivers, they're pressure prompted, right? So they're motivated by the pressure. And they act in bursts and spurts.
And probably work work best in those circumstances.
Exactly. Yes, and they find an early start unstimulating. But
exactly.
When I did this
focus.
training, and when I did this training, they said that there's actually one is not more productive than the other. So it's really just like
it's the P's just smash
difference.
it into a smaller period.
It was high time that myth was dispelled.
Exactly.
Because the Jays are more need to make a judgment call about it, so they will say like you're doing it the wrong way.
Right. Yeah.
Anyways, that's interesting.
And I see this with my parents for sure.
Oh, really? Go do tell.
Yeah, my dad is definitely a P like me. My mom is a J. She would just be full of anxiety until the thing was planned, even if it was sometimes months in advance. She would have to get it finished, and exactly.
And she'd start early on it probably.
Oh, yeah, super early. She would have just remarkable. She would figure things out, send letters, write stuff down, buy supplies, have it all worked out way before there was any reason to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my dad's a really strong J. My mom is a pretty strong J too, but my dad is like obviously a J. Like she's very organized, and very disciplined, extremely disciplined.
Well, I can totally relate to this because like I think this is one of the reasons why I strongly preferred law school to engineering school. And it was because in engineering school, of course, you're just doing homework along the way. Your homework is all worth some percentage of your grade. And then you have usually a midterm and then a final exam. In law school, your entire grade is the final exam.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, hey man, you just cram for 2 weeks and you're good. And I really enjoyed that. I felt like I don't know, it just really fit my personality well.
The school I went to, some of the tests they would have in this testing center, and sometimes there would not be a time limit or a limit on what you could bring into it. In my engineering classes. So there were times when I just didn't study for the test at all and just went there Saturday morning and just spent all day figuring out what I needed to know specifically for the questions.
Wow. See, as an F, I would feel morally not okay about that. Because I feel like a perfectionist, like I need to master this material, and I don't want to get a good grade if I didn't study it. I don't feel morally right about that.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. No, that's like a special skill of mine is getting just good enough at something to get the thing I want, but no better.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Right, but of course, if you're a P, I feel like you both kind of do what you enjoy, right? Like as a P, you know that you can put it off for a while, and you enjoy being able to kind of watch a few YouTube videos, play a little solitaire.
I exaggerate a little. I mean, obviously, I was going to the class, I was doing homework and stuff.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Being a perceiver doesn't necessarily mean you're lazy.
No, it doesn't mean you're lazy. It just means you cram it all in at the end.
Yeah, you hear that, Jays?
Exactly.
That's right. You hear that,
We'll get it done.
But
sometime.
Of course, the Jays have satisfaction in getting it incrementally done along the way. Like they feel better about that.
Oh, and it is so useful.
There's more certainty. Like the having your entire grade on your final exam, that gives me anxiety because I want to know going into the final exam, based on all my previous work and how the professor or whoever has interacted with it, that the outcome is basically already assured.
Yeah. That makes sense.
No, that's
sort of like not asking a girl out unless you know she's going to say yes. No.
Yeah, Bryce was saying that somebody up here I can't remember what her profession is, but had said that
Stephanie Gardner.
Yeah. What did she say?
Oh, she said typically a guy won't ask a girl out until he's about 75 or 85% sure that she'll actually respond favorably.
That sounds about
right.
right.
Now, I find and when I'm really interested in a girl, it's probably to my detriment. I lower that threshold and I just go for it, and it probably scares them.
Hey, good on you. I'm not as bold as you.
Well,
I think,
it hasn't led to any good results. So
can we tell our story?
And I've definitely been rejected. I've definitely been rejected by lowering that threshold. Sometimes in very embarrassing ways. Like this one time I asked a girl out in front of her boyfriend.
Oh wow. If you can't win if you don't play.
I definitely jumped the gun there.
That's true.
And it's sort of like I've heard one accountant's opinion that if you never get audited, you're not being aggressive enough in filing your income taxes. So it's the same idea. Maybe if you over-calibrate a little, that way you're not missing out on any opportunities.
Yeah.
But sometimes Bryce just says it out loud, like, "Hey, I'm only about 75%, but I'm going for it." Cindy, will you go out with me?
Or like that girl at this wedding reception we went to last night, where. That was the one, and I didn't.
You missed out on it.
Another the one, man.
Another the one. One of many the one.
Yes. Yes.
Incidentally, one of the things that took so long for Erica and I to get together as a couple was a rare disconnect in that sphere. Like I could not tell how she felt about me, and I prided myself on being pretty perceptive. I'm not, particularly autistic. I could tell if a girl was interested. There are all these signs. It's pretty apparent, right? Normally.
Yeah.
But she was a blank slate to me. I finally just had to gamble, and Bryce does this all the time apparently, but I didn't.
Yeah, and that's not a fault with James's perception. I was just particularly opaque in that I was not practiced in the art of flirtation.
Yeah.
And protective of myself.
She was protecting her own. Yeah, exactly, which I understand.
So, Erica, what was like the most flirty thing you did that James did not get?
We were way off topic, but I like this.
Well, this is relationships.
One tenth.
It is.
One tenth of a smile.
Like, 1/10 of a smile.
And then he wrote in your journal. He
Erica's
clearly knows now that I have feelings.
She's pretty shy. Yes, exactly. She's shy. And I remember, hey, she met my eyes for like 2 seconds. That seems kind of bold for Erica.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's true. Shyness is kind of separate to some extent from all these Myers-Briggs letters. Because, like, I'm a shy extrovert, but...
yeah. And I'm a shy introvert, so...
Right.
Yeah. I was gonna say one of the things that understanding P versus J, one of the ways in which it's been useful to me is that in the past, I remember, because I tend to sometimes be kind of a goal setter, even though that's probably more of a J thing. But
no, following through with goals is a J thing.
Okay, maybe that's what it is. On a schedule, because I remember like when I was going to Arizona State, like I was trying to get in better shape, and for a while I was like setting up these schedules for myself. I mean, your schedule's kind of set up because you have classes at certain times, and so I would be like, this time go to the gym. And so I would do that, and then when that time would roll around, I would think to myself, stupid, I don't want to go to the gym right now. I hate this.
Oh, and former Paul, how dare you? What's the big idea?
Exactly.
Past Paul.
Exactly. And I was like, well, that makes you think you know more than me, current Paul. But then I realized, I think sometime after I started getting into the Myers-Briggs stuff, I started to realize, like, oh, I like to keep my options open, so maybe I should try a different approach. And so instead, the only thing I changed is I just had like goal, like go to the gym sometime, whenever during the day. And then I would go to the gym even earlier than I had gone on my schedule.
Really?
And I would enjoy it. Yeah, I would be like, I'm going to go to the gym now and get stuff with. I can do it anytime I want.
I felt some of that too.
To do it now.
Because you feel like it's your choice. Yeah. That's funny because that goes against the conventional goal-setting checklist they always foist at you. It must be specific and achievable and, all those things.
Right. No, it's definitely been useful for me. And I've found in general that the more I can set goals that are non-structured, the more I accomplish them,
Okay, see, I was wondering if you remember when you did walks with Paul.
Yeah.
I was wondering if that was supposed to be a commitment device where you involved other people to force yourself to go on walks.
No, one of the reasons why we never got too many people. So for those of you, probably nobody's ever heard about this on the podcast.
But, it's famous.
So when I was in Phoenix, I had just started this Facebook group called Walks with Paul, and all it said in the description was like, I go on walks a few times a week. You should come with me. And some people told me, like, that's pretty bold to set up a walking group just to go on walks with you. But I didn't think about it that way. I just thought, like, well, won't people just have fun going on walks? Like, it's just fun. And one of the reasons we, like, hardly ever had any more than, like, maybe, like, 3-ish people, or sometimes we have more, like 5 or so, but was because I always planned the walk with Paul, like, the day of. So I was like, red alert, walk with Paul tonight in 6 hours.
Red alert.
That was
like
the most
a level, a security likelihood level, like there's an orange alert.
Walk alert
probability.
I like it. It's like, that's right. The Homeland Security level is blue, and the walk with Paul level is red.
Is red. Yeah. There's a guy I knew in college that when he passed around a list at the church he went to, a sign-up sheet for any girls that wanted to feed him dinner. And it actually worked. He got married to one of them, to somebody that signed up to feed him dinner.
And I can't believe that works.
I know. Everyone was kind of shocked.
That's true. He probably had a lot of.
Oh no, it's important to be very charming and good looking if you want to pull that kind of nonsense. The three of us, we got. I mean, in spite of being above average good looking, we have to rely on our wit and our scrappiness.
Yeah, man.
That's right.
On our character.
Our character. Strong character.
It does. That kind of reminds me of some SNL skit where they were telling you how to not get busted for like sexual harassment, and the main point they were putting across was like, don't be bad looking.
Yeah, it had a guy do exactly the same thing as the one who got reported for sexual harassment, and the girl was really excited about it, right?
Yeah, and the guy who was not good looking, apparently, he like just looks at the girl and she's like, leave me alone. She starts like calling the police.
Anyway. Yeah, calling HR.
Yeah. Yeah, but anyways, that's really interesting.
There was another skit similar to that where there was the slimy like higher up who's getting fired for sexual harassment, and then the like folksy security guard who is just like really charming, but like it said much worse things. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about perception.
Yeah.
I have had some females tell me that there's a fine line between creepiness,
a stalker,
and a stalker, and something that's welcome. It's just whether you're interested in the person. I think that's true for both genders, to some extent.
But somehow it's less creepy when it's a girl stalking a guy, which is reasonable.
It's probably
it has potential to be more crazy.
It's not more welcome. Yeah,
exactly. This is why it's important to seek feedback.
Yes, absolutely.
And then react accordingly.
Which is why I kept looking for feedback from Erica.
That's not really a topic we've talked about yet. Feedback, but we've kind of referred to it. Anyway.
Yeah, it is funny though.
A podcast episode
because girls are often frustrated. Oh, that'll be a cool episode. Yeah, girls are often frustrated that the guys seem oblivious to their signals, but then at the same time,
not just seem, we are.
Yeah.
Well,
sometimes we feign obliviousness to preserve the feelings of everyone involved, and it works wonderfully. Right. It's a great system.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. Like, I was in this.
I don't have to do that anymore now that I'm married. But yeah,
that's you, man. You're a lucky man.
It's pretty great.
It takes a lot of energy to feign stupidity.
You're so smart.
I know. Well, they keep dialing up the obviousness of the signs, right, of the signals. You got to like really, really work to ignore them.
Yep.
Right?
That being said, I would rather people overdo it on giving signals than underdo it.
Oh, it's a good thing.
Personally.
You know, it's interesting though that you, as a T, because like sometimes I thought this was a T versus F thing. Like I'm way less inclined to say something direct that I think might hurt someone's feelings, even if it's. There's a female friend of mine up here who said that, when people ask her out and she's just not, she knows she's not interested, she'll just say something like, I don't see this going anywhere, but I appreciate that. Yeah. And she'll just like say it straight out. But that kind of thing is like pulling nails for me to say something like that.
Oh, that's hard. That's hard.
Though sometimes what I'll do is I'll be like, I won't. I mean, this never happens in person, almost never. Like, whenever a girl asks me out, it's always through a text. But and it's,
when girls ask you out,
when girls ask me out, it's almost always through text.
How often are we talking? Like 24 texts here, 100 texts, or one text?
What do you mean?
Well, I'm just curious how statistically relevant is this sample? That's all I'm curious.
Oh, it's not very statistically relevant. I'm probably talking about like 5 total in my whole life.
Oh, that's significant. Okay.
25 more.
Well, I take that back. Okay, it's probably a little bit more than that. It might be a baker's dozen, but which
is a little bit of a double standard because it's like a serious crime, a faux pas for a guy to do anything via text. That in many social circles, I know.
Yeah, I know. I just kind of ignore that rule now.
Well, it's like Liz Lemon said in 30 Rock. It's okay for women to feel more strongly than men about double standards.
Yeah, exactly.
I applaud that.
No one really knows the rules of technology and dating anyway.
No, it's changing.
It's true.
We used to play this game called 1,000 Blank White Cards, and you make up some of your own cards. And James had made this card called the Double Standard, and it said something like,
I'm going to get in trouble for this.
It was like, if you're a man, get 100 points. If you're a woman, go get me something to eat or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
It was very sexist, double standard. All right, I'm sorry.
Erica loved that one.
I was there. I do remember being annoyed.
Condone that. He's really the messenger.
Nora, that was a younger, a more callow, a less mature version of James than what you see before you today.
That's a totally good point. There was some point. Wait, I was in the middle of making some point.
Dang it! Sorry.
What it was. I can't remember.
Okay, let's backtrack.
Oh.
If only we could rewind the episode.
But I was saying, like, so usually girls will ask me out through text, and usually, well, unless it's a girl that I've like been out with before, it'll sometimes be like vague to where I'm like, I can't tell if this is like a date, and
that's the idea. You got to keep it vague.
Yeah, right. And so if I know I'm not interested, oftentimes what I'll say is like, oh, I'm actually pursuing someone right now.
Perfect.
The escape
I'll
clause.
Say,
yes.
I'm interested in someone right now.
Yeah.
Because
which is probably true.
It's always true that I'm interested in someone more than that person.
Yes.
Yeah. That being said, I do give those girls props for like taking the initiative and and I mean, hedging your invite, by using text. That's something men do plenty too. And
it's great. Yeah. I remember the subject coming up once. And it is. Well, nothing ventured, nothing gained, all that business. Sure. But I remember a lot of people felt the phrase, the clause at the end, or whatever it is, the phrase "with me" was the significant one in English in our culture. That's how you tell it's a date. But
a date. That's very good. Good thinking.
Do you want to go to this thing with me, or as opposed to, hey, you want to go to this thing?
Yes. Good call.
That's awesome. By the way, James and I, we had two neighbors who lived next door to us in Phoenix, and they both got married to guys who they used the same exact phrase on, and it was a very direct thing. And it was from this book they were reading. Actually, I think this was an Elisa Snell book. And the phrase was, it was some guy that they had talked to a few times, and the phrase they used was, "I'd love for you to call me sometime." Marriage, bang, right there.
Dude,
2 marriages.
That is not mixing messages there, though. That's
not. It certainly isn't. It's like, hey,
the ball is in your court.
The ball's in your court.
Here's how I feel.
I will say yes.
And that's a good way of knowing, eliminating all the uncertainty.
Yeah.
Sure, you're instantly above 85% with that one statement.
Yes, you're
no, that's like 99.9999. I mean, if you say that and you're not interested in the guy, then you really need to change your approach.
I know. It was really funny. I remember it was really funny too because one of these girls, Jessica, I'm pretty sure it was like her first serious relationship. We were at like Payway all eating out one time. This guy wasn't there, but they were about to go out on this date. She was really excited about their first date. And I remember some of us were kind of thinking like, oh, Jessica, someday I'll learn that most of these don't work out. And then they just totally got married.
I remember. I thought that same thing. I thought, I hope it won't be too hard on her when this doesn't work out. She's really getting her hopes up here, really getting worked up. And then she got married before I did, so there you go.
Yeah, no, they totally pulled it off. Anyways, okay, we've veered a little bit off topic, but I guess any wrap-up stuff to talk about?
Well, to get us back on topic, I had one story. Okay. This whole time I keep picturing you lying there on the couch of an evening back when we were roommates, and our other roommate, Brian, coming over. And Erica, were you ever here for one of these interchanges? Well, Brian was a strong J and a strong action-oriented guy, and he always wanted, and an E, he always wanted to go out and do something, and he was convinced that Paul, I guess, was the perfect wingman. So there was this like drama that would act out like, I swear, every evening of Brian trying to get Paul to commit, to go, and Paul trying to find polite ways because he's an F, to turn down or keep his options open and say, maybe I'll go.
Well, actually Brian's a P, but it was his S. It was his SP.
There's no way.
No, Brian is is ISTP or something.
So, he was about action like nothing else.
Well, I know, but what that is, what that is though is that's the nuance between that's the nuance of the Kiersey temperament, because the SP temperament is that they're driven by action, and so Brian was also
that's like a hands-on conundrum.
Yeah, he would decide things last minute, but he preferred action. Like Brian would prefer to like go out and do something, to like sitting and talking about something, and that's why he was always like, let's go on this hike. Let's go to this party. Let's go to that. Let's go to the fireside. Yeah. But if you ask him ahead of time, because like I was asking Brian, because like James and some friends and I are doing this like cabin trip later this weekend actually, and I asked him like a week ago. I was like, "Hey, you going to that?" And he's like, "Maybe." And he's definitely got the P tendency.
Okay, that's a good point. I'm surprised, but not so much now that you've explained it. And that's a valuable distinction to have brought up. Yeah.
So I want to throw something out there.
Yeah.
Also, I want to make sure before we wrap up that we get a good, solid comment from Erica.
Yeah.
Who I feel
none
like
of your
hasn't had a
flimsy
chance to-
comments. None of your bad flimsy comments.
But give her the opportunity. But I just want to add also, I think that in the singles world, I think Jays are a little bit at an advantage, and they're more likely to actually escape singlehood than perceivers.
Okay.
But they sometimes bring us along for the ride. Am I right?
That's right. And,
sometimes. So, it could be also just that he was like motivated to like make things happen, in his social life.
Well, the fact that
because I'm kind of at that stage too. Like I'm actually trying to be better at planning things so that I can actually do something with my.
Oh, do you try to persuade Paul to do them with you, and then does he vacillate?
Oh, frequently. Although he's usually working, so it's usually not even much vacillation.
Prevaricate. That's the word I wanted.
Yeah.
Prevaricate. I don't even know that word. That's cool.
That's a good one.
No, I agree with what you're saying. Like, I think Erica would say, like, when she gave that 1/10 of a smile to James, like, she definitely was pulling her J out and making things happen.
Yeah. Speaking of what Erica did, she's right here.
Yeah.
Yes, it was very romantic when we began our formal relationship, and we were talking in a car parked at her house, and I think and I was like, well, as long as she doesn't leave, I'm just going to stay in this car. And then, before we knew it, the sun was coming up, and I was holding her hand.
Whoa! Awesome.
Yeah,
I mean, I crept over real casual, like just a little finger contact, and then, but yeah.
Were your fingers
pretty
like
great.
walking over, like making a walking motion? Like,
You should picture it that way.
Whistling.
Right. I like yawn.
Yeah.
My arms around.
Do. Oh my! Look at that over there.
Until that moment, I'd begun to suspect, based on the fact that she seemed to appreciate my company, longer than one would if one were not interested. I still was not 100% certain that there was mutual interest until that evening.
Yeah.
That's what kicked it all off, really.
Man, way to be be bold.
Yeah,
and Erica's like, I gave you 1,000,000 signs. No, just kidding.
No, I really don't think that I did. This is definitely not a case where I thought James was missing signs.
Yeah.
It was on me for being as shy as I was.
Your guys' I think there's now you guys were kind of friends beforehand too, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes I kind of think to myself, like, when I try to ramp things up in a romantic way with a girl that I'm already been friends with for a little bit, sometimes I feel like I'm a little bit more cautious. I don't know if that's the case.
I could
all
see
the time,
that too. But on my
sometimes
side, it was more like I thought surely I would have noticed. So by this point, I would have been able to sense interest.
Yeah.
Somebody was telling me about some show where like all they do is they tell two friends that one of them has been interested in the other for a long time. And sometimes the other one's like, I totally was too. And sometimes they were like,
that's a good
no,
premise.
I didn't feel any of that.
Oh, I bet they must artificially curate those, because I bet 95% of the time the other one already knew and wasn't interested.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Erica was an exception, I think.
Yeah.
And she's exceptional in many ways.
Whoa!
Nah, that's
Well,
awesome.
thank you.
Well, we
Okay, but you wanted a
go ahead.
J-related statement, right?
Yeah.
Like a J-related statement from Erica, or what were you looking for?
Just anything.
Because
here's the thing: introverts, especially smart ones with PhDs, have a lot of interest. They have a rich internal world of things that they're not saying, especially when they're stuck with a bunch of extroverts.
So true. My mom always told me you shouldn't just be looking for these fun, bubbly girls. I know it's easier, but you should find a nice, quiet girl. And I was always like, yeah, you're just saying that because you're a nice, quiet girl. But then I found me a nice, quiet girl, and it was preferable. So there you go.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Very nice.
Yeah, well, Erica, what's been going on in your mind that you're not saying?
Everything from the beginning of the episode that's occurred to you that you didn't say.
Wow, yeah, that's a lot of pressure. Oh.
You shut her down good.
You could just give us some final thought.
Here's a we can kind of there's a cartoon here that we can kind of end on, which is things that tend to annoy judges and things that tend to annoy perceivers. In fact, this thing actually says that the differences between judging and perceiving are probably the most marked differences of all the four preferences. That they cause us some hard problems sometimes, but Anyways, the judger is sitting here thinking of the perceiver. He can never make a plan. He never finishes anything. If he just made a list, he wouldn't be so disorganized. It's always perhaps and maybe. And then the P is thinking, why does it matter if I'm 10 minutes late? She always has to schedule everything. Why can't she just relax? Why can't she be more spontaneous? So, anyway.
Yeah, Eric is totally thinking those things about me all the time. I could tell.
Yep.
No. Again, this is it's another case where knowing the Myers-Briggs type of your partner is incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
In helping you manage how you perceive their orientation towards, making decisions and planning things. Yeah.
It manages your expectations of them as well. Right. So when they act in ways that you did not like, that you can understand, like, oh, okay, there's more to it.
Yeah, your interpretations.
I will say too, like from the P side, like this roommate of ours who like always wants to get places on time. It doesn't bother me because I could tell from the outset that's what was going on.
Exactly.
And so I always was like, okay.
And it's not a judgment on ourselves.
No, it's not. I was like, for him, it's important to know what time we're going. So it's important for me to say, like, how about we go at this time? And then, that's important to him. Yeah. And then I need to be able to go at that time. Yeah.
And I try to follow that same philosophy in our marriage. Yeah, because I know it's important to Erica that we're not, embarrassingly late. So I try to go at what to me is absurdly early, and to her still feels not early enough. But
exactly. And I try to relax a little bit and not get too uptight if we're late.
Sure.
Although sometimes I don't succeed.
And I'm still feel secretly a little smug if we get there and it turns out to be super early. And I'm like,
And you'd think I'd learned my lesson by now because I've gone terribly early to or what was on time to more than one party where I ended up there with the other weirdest person that
the only one who shows up early because they're socially awkward. Right?
Yes.
Yep. It's definitely happening. Yeah.
All my introvert powers would be sapped by the time anyone else got to the party, and then I'd just have to leave.
Because they drained you entirely.
Yes.
Yeah, no, understandable. James and I had, I think it was like several of our Halloween parties that we used to throw that there would always be somebody who would show up like half an hour early, and you would think to yourself like, what the heck? Like, we're not even set up, and nor can we entertain you yet. Anyways.
Right. Yep.
All right. That's like an extreme, Jay. All right, we better wrap this one up. Well, okay, everybody. That's kind of the end of the Myers-Briggs letters. And our next episode, we'll probably talk a little bit about Kiersey temperaments.
Well, or
maybe we've kind of gone over
a
little bit.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe
Who
we'll
knows? We'll plan later. We're perceivers.
And I'm sure we'll have the Nickersons on some other time.
We would love to be on another time.
Yeah, thanks for coming, guys.
Okay, cool. Well,
we promise 32% more words from Erica next time.
Whoa!
Oh, man, that's a specific number. That sounds like a J thing. I don't know how you pulled that out.
It's an accommodation.
But I guess it was a spontaneous number pick, too.
It's also a T thing, though,
That's true.
I don't know about that promise, but we'll work on it.
That's okay.
Okay, no more jokes. We got to go.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, guys.
See you all later. Goodbye.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing on iTunes or your favorite podcasting app and give us a rating. Thank you.